Hi, everyone. So for today's lesson, we are going to continue with some financial literacy. Specifically, we're going to look at types of taxes. Um, Here are some major ones that you should add to your notes. They're income tax, VAT. In Italy, you'll see it as IVA on the receipt. It's also called sales tax in the US, and then tariff taxes as well. So I've put definitions. The one that I really want to take a moment to explain is the concept of import taxes, just to make sure. So we have imported goods, which are goods that enter a country, versus exported goods, goods that the country sends out. Um, Often countries charge a import tariff on certain countries. So for example, there are certain regulations that allow countries within the EU to trade without tariffs, um, whereas with other countries we charge a import tax on them. So pause the video if you need to take a look at this. We have two examples that I'll be doing directly on screen. And then there's 5 practice problems for you to do. Like prior, I'll tell you to pause, try the practice problem your own, and then give it a shot, and then watch the video to see the actual answer. I'm going to ask you to do something slightly different. On the practice problems, have a second color pen as well. So when you make the change, let's say you can't solve a question and then you watch the video, at the top, put in a different color the word corrected. Therefore, I know which work you were able to do independently versus which you needed help with the video. It just allows me to better support you guys. All right, we're gonna go on unless you're pausing the video. So here's our first example. The VAT in Italy is 22% on all goods and services. Groceries, however, only have a 10% VAT. Now, I don't expect you to memorize these. These will be provided to you if you need them. So here's our first example. A new iPhone XS Max cost 1,689 euros. Now, in Europe, the tax is already included in the price. In the US, you have to add it in. So this represents what's the cost of the phone and the tax. Now, here's a way of visualizing that. So I'm going to draw a little diagram. This diagram represents the cost of the phone by itself. And then we add 22% on for the tax. Therefore, the cost of the phone, this represents my original 100%, and my tax, which on a phone is 22%. Therefore, the price that you see, which in this case is 1,689 euros, actually is representative of 122% because it includes the cost of the phone in the 22%, which was based on that original price of the phone. So we're asked, what is the actual cost of the iPhone without the VAT? So there's so many different ways in which you can do this. You can find the 22% and subtract it, or you could just find the 100%. So I'm going to go and just find the 100% as that's what the question is asking. So I'm going to set up my proportion. Now, I have in my proportion the information that I do know. I'm going to put percentages on one side. And like I said, I know 122% is 1689. Therefore, I'm going to say, okay, I'm looking for the 100%, and we'll say X, where X is price of the phone. So we are looking for just the 100%, the price without any tax included. So I'm going to use cross multiplication. 68900 is equal to 122x. Divide by 122, and I find that I'm using a calculator. I can't do that in my head. 1,384.43. I rounded up. It was 426. I rounded up to 43 euros. So the iPhone cost this amount. Therefore, now the next question says, what is the cost of the VAT? There's two different ways I could do this. I could say, well, if I'm paying $16.89 and I subtract just the price of the phone, I end up getting 304.57. So this right here represents the price of the VAT. Now this we know is 22%. So what we could have also done is we could have actually set up a proportion. Again, I know that 1689 was equivalent to 122%. And I am looking for 22%, and we'll say T, where T represents the tax on the phone. And if I was to use cross multiplication for this, I would have gotten 37,158 is equal to 122T. Divide by 122. And when I divide by 122, I get 304.57 is T. So it ends up giving me the same answer for the price for the VAT. Notice that this new proportion doesn't even have any 100 in the percentage side, because you don't always need a 100%. What matters is that the numerators match and the denominators match. The question may not be asking you to find the 100%. So here is the example one. Again, pause it if you need to add more to this notes or you need to re-watch it to make sure you understand it. Otherwise, we'll go on to practice one. So here's practice one. As a reminder, the VAT on food in Europe is 10% in Italy, sorry, not Europe. So go ahead and see if you can derive this answer. Pause it, take about 5 to 7 minutes. So I've drawn the diagram for this to show that this 4850 is actually equivalent to 110%. So I'm going to set up a proportion, and I know that amount. So right away, I'm going to say 110 is equivalent to 4850. Now, the question says, how much of this bill was taxes? Now, you can find the 100% and then find the 10%, but this question is just saying, what is the 10%? So I'm just going to say, I want 10, and I'll say T represents, again, taxes on groceries. So I cross multiply, 485 is equal to 110T. And when I divide by 110, I find that T is equal to 4.41. So 4 euros and 41 cents of the 4850 was tax. Just to prove this for a second, if we were to subtract this from our original amount, we know that 4409 was therefore the price of the goods. We know that 10% is the tax. 10%, we could just move the decimal one. So we can say, okay, 4.409, which this is what rounds up to 4.41, is 10% tax. So it's just a nice way to check and make sure that our answer is correct. Again, you could have found the 100% and then use that to then find what the 10% was. But the key takeaway is, because the tax is already included, this value 4850 does not represent 100%. It represents 110%. So let's go on to example 2. Example 2, we're now moving to the US. NJ stands for New Jersey, that's the state I'm from versus NYC, New York City. Here, the tax is actually included afterwards. So we don't know it, it's not built into the price. So Jose went on a shopping spree in New Jersey. When he went to the cash register, he saw that the tax came out to 93.45. So this was the tax. This is in New Jersey. So this represents 6.675%. The question is asking how much did the shopping spree cost him in total? And it says total. All right, so let's see. I know I paid 6.675%. So I'm going to say, okay, 6.675 is 93.45. And I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to find the 100%, the price of just the goods. And I'll say X price of shopping spree. Don't forget to define your variable. Cross multiply 6.675 is equal to 9345. Oop, forgot my X. Divide by 6.675. And X is equal to $1,400. That was a big shopping spree for Jose. Now this is the cost of the items. The question says the total. So I would have to say, okay, this is step 1. And now step 2 is finding the actual total, which is 1,400 plus the 93.45. And I find out that the total shopping spree is 93. Oh, oops, I forgot the 1,400. 1,493. $45. Now, I solved it in this way, but what I could have done is instead of 100, because I wanted the total, I could have said I wanted 106.675, which is the 100% plus the tax. And then I would use a different variable, say Y, where Y represents total price of shopping spree. If I had done this, Y would have given me the answer 1,493 and 45 cents. So that's example 2. Again, pause it if you need to. Otherwise, let's go to practice 2. Now take about 15, wow, take about 5 minutes for this. Make sure you read it carefully. Make sure you show your work carefully. We're in New York City. New York City has a tax rate of 8.875. Go ahead. So you may have solved in a slightly different way, but again, I'm just trying to make sure that you see all the different ways. Now, tax is only paid on what you end up paying, so therefore I need to find the discount first. The discount was 15%. So I use the equation this time, and I know that 15% discount is the same thing as paying 85%. So this 0.5 represents 85%. So I found that the jacket will end up costing Irene $153. Step 2 was finding the price after the tax. Now I went straight to including that, so that's why this represents 108.875%. Because it's an 8.875% increase. You could have just found the tax and then added it on. In doing that, I found that the price was $166.58. Now, I haven't stressed it, but make sure you always write your answer as a sentence in the end, putting it into context. All right, practice 3. Take about 7 minutes for this one. This one's multi-step as well. Now, in the US, we also leave what's called a tip on meals. Tax is on the full price of the meal, and tip is also on that same price. Now, I will give you a hint, so if you're really stuck on this, you can press play on the video again. I'll give you the little hint. and then you pause it again and try it on your own. All right, read carefully. So my hint for you is giving you the first two steps. Now remember, tax is 8.875%. Step one, you're given that 20% was tip and you know what you paid for tip. Use that to find the price of the meal. Then now that you have the price of the meal, find the tax. All right, go ahead. So I knew in step one that 20% was equivalent to 1680. And I was looking for the price of the meal, which counts as the 100%, my original amount. Using cross multiplication, I found that 84 was the original price of the meal. Then in step two, I found the tax. This time I just found the tax. You could have also found the full cost of the meal with the tax at this point. I just found the tax. I used the equation to show that this is equivalent to T. Now it was 7.455. You have to round up because it's money, and 5 tells you to round up, and you can only have 2 decimal places. I then found the total price by adding all of it together and getting $108.26 is the final cost of the meal. This is why, if you're ever in the US, don't look at just the prices on the menu and think, no worries, I can afford this. Because notice the $84 meal all of a sudden is $108.26. So it's a little bit more. So you have to build in that extra price. All right, let's go to the next practice problem. Practice 4. All right, this one should take you about 4 minutes to go. There's no hint, so just press play when you're ready to see the answer. So I solved this question with 2 methods, showing that they will get the same exact answer of Italy raising $34.482 million. I used a proportion over here. I used a percentage equation over here. Just wanted to show you the 2 ways. Let's go on to practice 5. It's our last one. Practice 5 is multi-step. So the way in which I'm going to be doing this is I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to solve it. I'm going to give you a hint for A. So if you're stuck on A, replay the video, you'll get a hint, pause it, then try to solve A. I'll go over A, then pause it, then we'll look at B and C. All right, so go ahead with A. So here's my hint for A. You always have to compare the same quantities. If I'm dealing with inches and meters, I need to convert one into the other. Here we have dollars and euros, but we are told that in 2016, the exchange rate from euros to dollars, you increase the value by 13%. Use that to alter euros into dollars. Okay, so I started by finding a 13% increase in our euro amount. That's why over here I wrote 113. Ooh, change from orange to green, because 113 represents 113%. You could have found 13% and then added it. Perfectly fine. Either way works. So I found that back then, 517 euros was worth $584.21. I then used that to find the price of after the tariff, because at first it's still, now that they're in dollars, 584 is less than the 682 in the US. But with the 25% tariff, so that's also an increase. So I wrote that 1.25, which is 125%. Again, you could have found 25% and then added it. The price of the imported steel becomes $730.26. Therefore, it is cheaper to buy steel in the US because of this import tax. This is often why countries put import taxes on items, because they want to make those items that may be cheaper somewhere else more expensive in the US so that, people are more likely to buy what's called domestically, so things that are prepared there. So that's part A. Now that we have our two prices and we know that the US option is cheaper, what part B is just saying, by what percentage less is the US amount? And then part C is what percentage more, or what is the percentage of the expensive one, so European, compared to the US. So pause it, and then when you're ready to see the answer, go ahead. Okay, so part B and C, again, there's different ways about going about this, but I did this on purpose so you can see the importance of setting what counts as the 100%. Because part B is saying I'm comparing to the expensive option, that means that the European price, the Europe price, is my 100%. Whereas in C, I'm comparing to the cheaper option. So the cheaper option, the US price, is now my 100%. Now, I did both of them as comparisons. So in part B, I got that the US is 80% of Europe, which means it's 20% cheaper. The question specifically asked for percentage less, therefore technically it's asking for saying 20% cheaper. Part C, on the other hand, is just saying the percentage compared, purely compared. So when I got 125% compared, that's the answer. Now, in my sentence, I took an extra moment, said that this means that European steel is 25% more expensive than US steel. So I gave these questions to really make sure you think about what represents the 100%, and am I asking for the change, or am I asking for comparing to one or the other? So this is today's lesson. Don't forget to upload a photo of your notes and the practice problems. There are extra practice problems that are on Schoology as well. You are not required to do them. They're just practice problems. The way it's set up, you would want to take a look at day 2. There's also an answer key. Again, feel free to look at the day 1 questions as well. I slightly changed it compared to last year. That's why the questions are a little different, but it's still great practice for you if you'd like. And other than that, I will see you at next class. Come prepared with questions because you are asking specific questions for next class. All right, everyone. Bye.